Good morning, class. I miss you, but I'm not able to be with you this morning for obvious reasons. So, I'm obviously fairly busy this morning, but I will never neglect my lectures for this class. And hopefully you'll see me on Thursday. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm in the hospital. I've experienced the miracle of life. I've been a witness to it. And I will be bringing a slideshow on Thursday to show what it's like being an innocent bystander in a baby labor and delivery. So that'll be fun. We'll have a slideshow for that. So this lecture shouldn't take all class. I'm gonna try and shoot for 30 minutes. Okay, so with our extra time, what I want us to be thinking about is first, I'm encouraging you guys, and maybe you already have, to think about your midterm assignment and last Thursday's lecture, and basically update our stand-in. What do you call it when a teacher is taking your place? Substitute, yeah. If you can update our substitute on what we've learned so far about personality. What is personality, and what you've learned so far based in your own experience writing a paper on your experience with a personality test, and then from our lectures on Thursday. So, mentioning our lectures on Thursday, that's where I'm going to start with information today. So, what I've given you so far, and you have this experience because you took a personality test yourself. You have sort of a modern perspective and a classical perspective based off of what we discussed on Thursday. So, our Western world, if you will, especially America, more than the rest, because of the history of Puritanism and how it affected people, everyone. It affected everyone in the West, and Puritanism deeply affected the West, and so that's why Freudianism was able to take such a strong, find strong acceptance in America, is because of Puritanism. So when we talked about Freud and we talked about the subconscious on Thursday, that's a kind of a classical view. Okay, people don't really think about the unconscious and the tripartite unconscious as a major, as it's not a well accepted structure of personality. It's not a well accepted structure of unconscious, and even unconsciousness isn't exactly well accepted anymore. But that's what, we're gonna start crying. That's what the world that you live in was based on, and that's a pretty classical view. And anyone who discusses unconsciousness or personality has to reckon with Freud. And so the assignment that I'm going to post tonight is going to be directly related to unconsciousness. And you'll need to lean on the textbook and your lecture notes from Thursday to answer the discussion board this weekend, because you're going to talk about Freudian unconsciousness, and then you're going to talk about the Carl Jung collective unconsciousness, okay? So that's all coming up this weekend. So when you took the Myers-Briggs test, what you were experiencing was a more modern perception of personality, okay? So it's less about conscious, unconscious, battling structures, and the more modern idea is your personality is based off of certain temperaments, and the temperaments are binary. You could either be one way or the other way on this temperament, right? And so if you remember taking the Myers-Briggs, there were 4 temperaments, and you would be one direction or the other on every temperament. Does that make sense? And so that's why there were 16 personality types, because you could have 16 combinations of the 4 temperaments, right? So that is a pretty common way of viewing personality today. That's the most common way. So we all did Myers-Briggs, but the personality test or the personality structure that I want to talk about today is they call it the major 5. And so I think that's what it's called, and I have a link here on this, but it's called the big 5. Yep, the big 5 personality traits. So a lot of modern psychologists like this way of viewing personality through these big 5 personality traits. And I almost just had you guys watch a TED Talk on this because I found a really good one. Oh, my computer. What? Come on, guys. Okay, I'm back. Look at the baby. I might send Benjamin some pictures that he could share with you guys after class. If anyone's a big baby fan in the class. What was I talking about? The big 5 personality traits. So I watched a TED Talk of a personality psychologist. He just specializes in basically finding correlations to certain experience. Ooh, excuse me. Finding correlations to certain experiences with certain personality traits. And so the idea is that studying humans through this perspective of personality traits, you can make life a little more predictable. And so there's a really good personality psychologist who did some work on this, but Jordan Peterson is a really popular psychologist for his political activism. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, but he's really popular. But he did a lot of work with the big 5 personality traits as well as a clinical psychologist. And one thing that he did was he made a program that you can pay for, where you take the big 5 personality test, and then what they do is they, based off your temperaments, they help you plan your life. They help figure out what's going to be motivating for you. They give you a list of ideas of what type of jobs you could have that you would be good at, that you would find meaning in and enjoy. So it's really interesting, and studying personality is weird and it's non-definite exactly, but it's not like it's not productive. It is productive. Oh, there's a baby crying. Oh, that baby's really crying. Hopefully y'all. Okay, we're just gonna soldier on. Hopefully you can't hear that. It's very distracting for me though. Gotta pause this. Okay, the crying has calmed down and I switched sides. My right shoulder was killing me, so I'm back. If I remember correctly, basically my point is that personality study can be helpful and it can be legitimate. So and my other point was that the big 5 personality traits is very modern and very accepted by sharp psychologists, more than one that I could reference for you if you needed me to. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take a dive into what the big 5 looks like, and then we're going to talk about how personality traits are actually expressed. So, excuse me. So let's dive into that. And as I'm looking at the clock, this might be a quicker lecture than I thought. My lectures are I'm getting better at covering more information with less words. I've noticed that a lot in my lectures lately. So we're getting it dialed in here at the end of the school year. So I hope, is it an acronym where it's letters that go vertical, like a word that goes vertical, and then we're going to do an acronym. I think that's what it's called. And the acronym is, you need to be taking notes. If you're not taking notes, get out your notebooks now, get out your pens now, and we need to take notes because we're doing an acronym. And the acronym is OCEAN, okay? And so 5 letters, 5 personality traits, and it's OCEAN, okay? So the way an acronym works, vertically speaking, you should have the letters O, right? O, C, E, A, N, right? So they're going vertically. And then we're going to have words at the beginning. Okay. I probably over-explained that. So for the letter O, it's openness, okay? So the personality trait is openness. And what that means is it's basically openness to experience, okay? So openness to new experience. And one thing I want to emphasize is there's no such thing as a good personality trait and a bad personality trait. And I think we learned this when we did the Myers-Briggs, but your personality traits have good effects and bad temptations. They all do, right? So you have weakness. Everyone has weaknesses and strengths when it comes to their personality traits. So when it comes to openness, when you're open to new experiences, the world is an interesting place, and it's an interesting place because opportunity abounds, okay? And you tend to lack fear when you're dealing with opportunity, So here it's saying if you're high in openness, you're creative, you're focused on new challenges, happy to talk about abstract concepts. And so being low in openness would be like, you could think of it as like the temptation of being open is that you're disorganized and that you're aloof at times. When you're low in openness, you really value the structure that makes up your daily life, and you value holding that structure together. You value doing your chores, you value waking up at the same time every day, you value the mundane, and it makes you a really good asset for employers and possible spouses, when you really value the mundane. So being low in openness isn't exactly a bad thing. People who aren't open need to open up a little bit, and people who are open need to kind of dial it in on the mundane. So openness, okay? So OCEAN, right? So down to C. It's conscientiousness, okay? CONSCIENTIOUSNESS. Conscientiousness. Okay. What does conscientiousness mean? So think of it as this is the one I have a hard time nailing down, and I'm kind of looking at my phone here. But you can think of it as like, you can almost think of it as goal-oriented, like applying, like not quite type A, but applying great importance to the things that you're trying to achieve. And so this helps to focus the mind in a sense when it comes to organizing yourself, because you're organizing yourself in almost a moral way where you're like, I have to achieve these things. And so when you're high in conscientiousness, you spend time preparing, you finish important tasks, you pay attention to detail, and you enjoy having a set schedule. Okay. When you're low in conscientiousness, you dislike structure, schedules, you make messes and don't take care of things, fail to return things, put them back where they belong, procrastinate, and fail to complete necessary or assigned tasks. Okay, I would be considered low in conscientiousness. So that's interesting, and that one doesn't exactly fit to me as much, but it's helped people in predicting people. That category is important when it comes to predicting outcomes in life. So it is really interesting. So, okay, OCE. Under E, it's extroversion, okay? This was on Myers-Briggs. It's going to be in the Big Five. It's going to be in everything. Every personality test should talk about extroverted versus introverted, right? And so I don't know if I have to over-explain this. Extroverted, people say, okay, you're a people person. Introverted, you prefer time to yourself. And I know I've said this before, but one way that's really interesting to think about it is, do you gain or lose energy when you're hanging out with people versus being by yourself? So it's hard to say if I'm extroverted or introverted, because I'm more outgoing than, my wife is a good example. I'm more outgoing than my wife, but I think she genuinely gets more energy from being around people than I do. When at the end of hanging out with people, I'm ready to be by myself and go to bed, and she's fired up. So it's interesting. It's interesting. So I do love solitude, and so you can be outgoing and not quite extroverted, if that makes sense. So, but I think beyond that, we all have a pretty good sense of what extroverted and introverted is, right? Okay, so we have O, C, E, and now we're going to go to A, and this is agreeableness, right? Agreeableness. So this is an interesting, this to me is a very interesting personality trait that they have here, and it's something that's really interesting to measure in people and see in people and how it affects their everyday life. So people who are agreeable, they have this aspect of caring about others, this empathy, this love, this interest in what's going on in other people's lives, okay? That's a highly agreeable person. But they struggle with conflict. And so the balance in life is always, how do I be as loving and an enjoyable person to be around as possible? Hope you guys can't see that box that I'm clicking. I bet you can. Oh man, this could run the whole thing. We're gonna soldier on. This is ridiculous. Hope you can't see that. Everywhere I click, there's a box. Okay, just move that around. I'll put it on the cup. All right, so if y'all can see that, it's on the cup. If you can't, it's not. All right. So in life, especially as a Christian, I was raised to be as loving to people as possible. How do you do that and hold proper boundaries? Can you hold proper boundaries and not be rude? Is it sinful to be rude? Or is it okay to be rude, and is it not sinful if it's a proper boundary? Or is there a correct loving way to do that without being rude. It's really interesting. I've struggled with this a lot in my life because I want to be agreeable, but I've had to set some serious boundaries with people because you just get taken advantage of. The world, we love this world. We want to make the world a better place and love people in it, but there's so many people who would just walk all over you if you're overly agreeable. They will take major advantage of you, and you can't let that happen. It will take your life from you, and you just can't let that happen. So that's in a sense what this agreeableness is talking about. It's this very key personality trait of how much are you interested in being on good terms with others, how much are you interested in what's going on in other people's lives, and how much are you in your own world and organizing your own life in your own space, without too much care of what's going on around you, with the people around you. So that's the personality trait, agreeableness, and it's a very interesting one. And I would encourage everyone to think about in their lives if they're too agreeable or not agreeable enough. So, and in this day and age, I think a lot of us, especially us young Christian people, tend to be overly agreeable. And is there a good way to address that? But there's definitely people in this classroom who are not agreeable enough. Okay, guys? So just think about that one. So, okay, we're on to our last personality trait. So we have OCEAN, right? Ocean. The last one is neuroticism. Okay. We haven't talked about this word, but it's an important word in psychology, and maybe we'll get into it more in abnormal psychology coming up next week, actually. So, but here's how you spell neuroticism: NEUROTICISM. Neuroticism. Okay. So a lot of times people think someone is psychotic when they're actually neurotic. Okay. Someone thinks that someone is crazy. The word crazy is very weighted. People think someone is off their rocker, out of touch with reality, seeing things, hearing things. But there's a clear distinction between neurotic and psychotic. Psychotic is I'm seeing something, I'm hearing something. I think that there's people out there to kill me, but they're actually not. I've just made this up in my head. I think someone's living in my attic, stuff like that. That is psychotic, okay? Neurotic is very different. And it has to do with how much basically how much do your emotions control you? How sensitive are you to your negative emotions? And how impulsive are you based off of your negative emotions? So a neurotic person is very, very sensitive beyond the point of what's reasonable, to the point that people think they're crazy. And so we've gotten into this before when we talked about I don't remember. We talked about personality disorders, and we talked about a certain type of personality disorder. But we'll talk about it again next week. So, but basically, the personality trait neuroticism is how sensitive are you to your emotions, and how does that affect you, impulsively speaking. So if you are high in neuroticism, you experience a lot of stress. So things that shouldn't stress you out. Everything stresses you out because you're neurotic, okay? You worry about many different things. You get upset easily, experience dramatic shifts in mood. You feel anxious and you struggle to bounce back after stressful events. Yeah, that's a great point about neuroticism is like once you've had a failure, it's completely defeating. um, you're completely destroyed by your failure. So that's an interesting thing about neuroticism as well. So people who are low in neuroticism deal better with stress. You know, you can definitely go. Once again, we're talking about a binary here. Okay, you can be a little neurotic, not completely neurotic, right? You can be a little bit opposite of neurotic, but not all the way. You know, if you were all the way opposite of neurotic, you would basically be someone who doesn't have emotions. You would basically be someone who doesn't take your emotions into account at all. She's so sweet. Um, so there's obviously the opposite of neuroticism isn't exactly emotional stability. You know, we're talking about a binary here, but just think of it as someone who is less controlled by their emotions and less influenced by their emotions. So that would be the other direction of the neuroticism. Okay. 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 So how does this work? How am I gonna wrap this up? So so the modern approach to psychology is basically this. Every trait that you have in your personality expresses itself in a in a um, in a three-part fashion. Okay, you could think of it as tripartite. So we'll just call it tripartite for now. And so this is what it is, and I want you to write this down. Biopsychosocial. Okay, Biopsychosocial. Okay, biopsychosocial. Right. Okay. This is and so write that down. And the way that you can describe this to yourself is this is the tripartite nature of every personality, of every expression of a personality trait. Okay. So each personality trait expresses itself biologically, psychologically, and socially. Okay, biopsychosocial. Okay, so let's just do a quick example. Extroverts. Okay, extroverted people are interesting people. Okay, socially, we kind of have an idea of what the expression of that personality trait is. We see them interact with people more. Okay, introverts, you're more likely to see them isolate. Okay, so that's the social part. Done. We're done with that. So let's talk about bio. Let's talk about psychological. Okay, psycho. Biologically speaking, it's interesting. And I don't know enough about this, but I learned just today that caffeine affects extroverts differently than introverts. Extroverts are more likely to get positive effects of caffeine and manage symptoms of caffeine better. Introverts are more likely to experience more of the negative side effects of caffeine. And it's funny because people talk about the afternoon crash, that caffeine crash, and they're trying to get away from coffee. They're drinking mushroom coffee. They're doing this or doing that, trying to get energy, but not through coffee because they don't want that crash. And I'm like, a crash from coffee? No, it's like beautiful. You never have a crash. It's just wonderful. You just beautiful focus and energy. And I guess I'd never really thought about this, but based on your personality type, your body experiences symptoms of caffeine differently, and the same would go for nicotine and alcohol and sugar and chocolate, all these things. So based on what you prioritize in your personality and in your mind, your body responds to that accordingly, and you actually experience side effects based off of that. So that is something amazing about how your body and your mind work together, and that is amazing. That is really amazing. So that is just an example of how personality traits have a biological expression. Okay, so lastly, obviously, personality traits have a psychological expression, and we've talked about this on most of these personality traits. But your personality traits are basically the skeleton or the structure of which, or the pattern. A pattern's a better word. Personality traits are basically the patterns of how you think. You think in these patterns, and you stick with it, and you do it because it makes you happy, or you do it because it's successful, or you do it because that's your personality. I don't really know, but that's the pattern, and that's how you go with it. So your personality traits are patterns, and it's patterns of thinking, and so it's psychologically expressed like that. So if you're an extrovert, once again, you're going to have patterns of thinking that are geared towards others, geared towards pleasing others, geared towards enjoying time with others, maybe getting attention from others. But it's going to express itself in patterns of thinking. So to recap, and I'm wrapping up, we're done here, guys. To recap, the big five personality trait, widely accepted and well used. Okay, so it's ocean. Okay, openness, conscientiousness, extrovertedness, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Okay, those are all binary traits. Okay, everyone can express those traits on a binary spectrum in two different directions, and a combination of those is what makes up your personality. Okay, that's basically the most modern theory. Each of these personality traits has a tripartite effect and expression. The tripartite nature of your personality is biopsychosocial: biological, psychological, and social. Okay, how you interact with others, and social actually covers your environment, how you respond to danger, how you respond to stress, things of that nature. So biopsychosocial, so everything you do, your personality is geared to respond in a tripartite manner: biologically, psychologically, and socially. So okay, so we'll just call that the lecture. We'll wrap it up here. If you have any questions, please email me. It makes my heart so happy when people email me questions about my lectures. And so we'll leave it there. You should see tonight that I post a discussion board, and make sure you're able to access your notes from last week and the textbook to do this discussion board. It's going to be a bit longer discussion board than usual. It's going to be 2 paragraphs. So do it on time. If you don't do it on time, message me before the due date, or you'll get a 0. Okay? Or you'll get the deduction that we talked about previously. So get it done. Oh, last thing, you can do your own research on this if you don't like the information the textbook is giving you. If you use something other than your lecture notes or your textbook, please just cite the article. You don't have to do MLA or anything. Just basically give me a link and a title of the article. If it's from a journal or something, you put that there too. So yeah, just so that we're clear on where you're getting your information, and I can give you a better grade on your discussion board. So but yeah, I'm done. I'm exhausted. We're going back to bed. She's already asleep. Look at that. She's sleeping. Let me see if I can show her the camera better. Oh, baby. She's got a scrunch. Newborns have a scrunch in their face. They're scrunchy. Does that look like my kid? Okay, guys. Y'all have a good week, and hopefully I'll see you Thursday. Bye-bye.